Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Mindful Constitution podcast. And I'm here today with my friend Matt Jerr. I actually was a guest on his podcast, Sober Friends podcast. We had a really awesome conversation that I encourage you to listen to. Matt also does some writing over on Substack
Yep.
under the name Sober Friends Dispatch, which is pretty great as well. That's relatively new to you, right?
It is. I had a mailing list and I just moved it over to Substack and I just have kind of changed to a different way of communicating recovery than, hey, here's the podcast of no, I'm going to write something different. You get the podcast for one thing, and if you want to read recovery a different way, you have that here.
Yeah.
So I try and do it weekly, and then sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Just life gets in the way.
Totally. I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
We are just lamenting about how busy we are this summer before we hopped on. So,
Oh my God, it's crazy.
yeah, the summer energy, I feel like too, it almost is building towards the end of the summer.
Hmm.
I think just that feeling of summer's ending, fall, it's almost like an instinctive, like visceral
Yeah.
alignment with the seasons, getting the rest out of the summer, squeezing all of the energy out of it.
Hmm. You got it.
Yeah. So, well, for starters, Matt is, as I said, a fellow sober friend. You've walked like more of the traditional path of recovery and
Yes.
AA. So I thought it would be cool to just hear, your thoughts about your recovery, your story. I also like hearing the male perspective. I don't have tons of men on the podcast, so that's nice.
Mhm.
And yeah, your thoughts on like the sober curious movement and all of that. But I wanted to start by just giving a little backstory on you and hearing about, what kind of drinker you were and what led you to sobriety in the first place.
Well, I was a wine drinker, which
Mm,
many it was a way of making me feel as though I didn't have a problem because I drank really good wines and I had good stemware and I had a wine spectator subscription and only classy individuals do that, wine connoisseurs, so I couldn't have a problem. I
hmm
grew up with alcoholism in the family. I was an only child. I saw the way my parents drank, and I thought I would never do that. But then I ended up doing it. I really found alcohol in college,
Yeah.
found one trip to the hospital with alcohol poisoning, and that didn't dissuade me. So, a lot of drinking by myself. That was
Mm,
really my thing because I was afraid of being out and driving drunk, and I didn't want people to see me drunk and think I have a problem. So I drank alone a lot where nobody could see it and nobody could wag their finger. I did a lot of drinking when the family went up to bed so that
mm,
they didn't even see it. So there was a lot of hiding and a lot of lying to myself.
yeah.
It was really a crutch. Alcohol was not my problem, although it was. Alcohol was the solution to my problem, which was I didn't know how to relate to people and I didn't know how to relate to people and I didn't know how to get through the feelings that I had. So I could get through those awkward social situations with a drink. And then I also like getting drunk. I thought a lot about my drinking over time, about why it would be problematic. I took the tests online to see, do I really have a problem? Now, if you take those online tests, you probably have a problem because somebody who has a glass of wine once every couple months doesn't take the online tests. The only
Right.
people who take them already are drinking in a problematic way. Like my wife's a normal drinker. I don't know if she's had a drink in a couple of years. Maybe she'll have like one or two glasses of wine a year. That's what normal people do. It's crazy to us, but normal people maybe have a couple of drinks, maybe a whole year. That's not unusual. Some people have it more than that, but it's not uncommon because it's not a mental obsession. So
Mm,
those of us who had the mental obsession were drinking a lot. Or like me, I could go times without drinking and then I'd go through a binge. and then I couldn't stop. And then I'd find a way to stop, and I could stop for a while, and then I would binge again.
Mm-hmm.
So drugs were not a part of my story. Marijuana. I had this conversation with my wife recently, like because in Connecticut, marijuana is legal. There are
Mm-hmm.
dispensaries like up and down the street. There's a mall I live near, and there's a dispensary like on all sides of the mall.
Yeah.
And that never was my thing. It pinned my anxiety. I had enough
I
in my
was the
hand to
same.
lose.
I smoked weed, but it was never the same as alcohol.
No, it just, yeah, I didn't agree with me. I had bad experiences and really bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Opioids, that would have been great. I had pain pills from time to time, and I had to not take those. I'm like, this is going to be bad,
Yeah.
and there's no way to get the pain pills other than probably from a dealer, and so I better not do this because I could get addicted. Those were
Yeah.
wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, it was beer. I drank I drank stuff that was kind of good quality because if I drank a Coors Light, I could drink like a 12 pack easy. So I try and bring the amount totals down. I was watching a show one day. There's a show Switched at Birth, which was on
I
Freeform.
remember that. On
The
like TLC or something.
Freeform or like ABC Family
Yeah.
or one of those. And one of the main characters was in recovery and she relapsed, and I could see what it looked like of her relapsing, and I could identify, and I'm like, I have a problem. I have to stop right now. And I did, and it took me a while before I told anyone. It was a therapist who told me maybe you should go to AA and check it out. It was a while before I went there, but I stopped and I didn't drink, and it was really hard. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like my whole body was on fire. That's how it felt. I'm like, this is all I can think about. But I was thinking about that everything in my life had to change. If I was going to stop drinking, everything had to change. Alcohol wasn't my problem. And it was the first time I ever thought that way. So something in a moment there had changed in me and that I was open. I went to AA because it was suggested to me, although I never had a desire, I would never have gone on my own. It was suggested to me, and I found a crew there, and I worked the steps. I read the book. I went to meetings. Early on, I went to a lot of meetings and I was involved in service. Service was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
My meeting schedule is not great right now. I go to about one a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can do. I'm the treasurer of the group, but I am also not one of these people of like AA or nothing. I'm an AA and person.
Well, I also kind of think of it as like coaching. Isn't the idea like
Yes.
to eventually be to a place where you don't feel like you need it at the level you did when you first started, and not in a way where you're like backing away, trying to get out of accountability to yourself, but just because you're in a good place and it worked, like you don't want to have a codependent relationship with it for the rest of your life in the way
No.
where it's like a meeting every single day.
I like going because I like hearing new people. I
Yeah.
like going because I think through when I was new, and if there were no people in there who knew what they were talking about, that would be very difficult for me. So I go a lot of times thinking, I'm going to go to somebody else who needs a meeting, has one, not because I need to have a meeting.
Right.
We did a reading a couple weeks back where it was one of the stories in the back of the book, and the writer was talking about, in my life it comes, AA, God, and family in that order. And I'm like, that really rubbed me the wrong way. So
Yeah.
if you're a big book thumper, you may not like this, but I look at AA as a tool. It's, to
Right.
me, it's as much devoting your life to Excel or Microsoft Word as it is AA. AA is a tool to help you get and stay sober.
Yeah.
But recovery to me doesn't mean AA. I don't devote my life to AA itself, which is the process. I devote myself to recovery, and it's a process to help me help others and to help stay sober. but I'm also interested in what are the other ways? Because I know a lot of people get sober in different ways, like
Right.
coaching. People find a lot of like one-to-one coaching that helps. For me, I can handle the recovery things in AA, but I can't handle the things that are messed up in my head, the trauma I've lived through,
Hmm.
my anxiety, ADHD. Those things I can't touch in AA. I need to go to therapy for that too.
Hmm.
So there are other things that I do that I look at as part of my recovery plan. Therapy is one of them. AA is one of them. Listening to a recovery podcast is one of them. Going on social media and flipping through um, recovery TikToks or Instagram and that type of stuff is
Yeah.
part of it. And I see a lot of people getting sober online, especially younger people.
Yeah.
I think you can do all of the above.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's definitely, I feel the reason why that is with online is that with the growing awareness around alcohol and people just starting to tune in at an earlier space in their drinking, it kind of provides them the luxury to be a little bit more selective about how they want to go about recovery
Hmm.
or abstinence or their sober curious path if they don't quite feel like they're there yet. And so, I think it provides people like this flexibility where they can start at a little bit of a lower entry
Yep.
point because they're not accelerated in their drinking as much because people just are more starting to look at it more. It's not so black and white like alcoholics and everyone else that's a normal drinker. Unless you're an alcoholic, you're a normal drinker. It's not this
Yes.
binary thing anymore. It's like the spectrum's being identified. And so people who are increasingly like self-aware or willing to kind of explore at an earlier stage don't have to have quite as much all-encompassing recovery support. And so I think that's why we're seeing so many emerging different approaches with like different
Mhm.
abstinence and mindfulness apps and tick sober talk and the sober curious movement and people just building community on their own outside of AA, yurt circles. But
I've got a friend who has a teepee in his yard. He built a teepee and
yeah,
he has a meeting at his house every Saturday night. And he has like 20 people over his house. And they have a
yeah,
meeting under this teepee and he has a fire and it stays warm in the summer and it stays warm in the winter.
yeah, yeah. That's like the yurt. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And it is so it's just people and I think AA is wonderful because it does provide people that like all encompassing sort of more rigid like support, whereas like you probably need like a meeting every single day 90 and 90 and like all that stuff and
You can meet
really
other sober people at AA. You have a
yeah,
crew, you have people you can meet to do sober things together, to learn how to
right.
socialize without alcohol. Having a good crew of sober people around you, however you find it, is so important to
Yeah.
recovery and having that connection. And one of the great things about AA is you're going to meet friends who are sober.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So you said meeting sober people. I was going to ask, like, what have been the most important elements of your recovery? And it sounds like community and just
Community.
yeah.
Uh, I'd say that and service work. So I
Hmm.
have been a treasurer on a district level. I'm a treasurer right now on a group level. Just helping out and doing service for other people has been the thing that has motivated me the most. I think that's a lot of why, other than the fact that I guess I have an ego and I like talking into a microphone, and I like the idea of playing with audio and stuff, but podcasting as well, of sharing a message, a unique message out there. Like I look at what's great about your podcast is you speak a lot to women. And I think women need to have their own special place because recovery can be very male dominated.
Hmm.
Women need to have a place where they feel safe or where somebody's talking to them in a way they can relate to that a guy may or may not be able to do.
Hmm.
It's important to have gender only meetings and to have meetings where just women can go To me, that's
Right.
really, really important. And having whatever flair of recovery I have for somebody who can relate to that is important. What's great about these podcasts are there's so many different flavors on a spectrum that you can find, two women talking who have never been to AA, who just don't want to call themselves alcoholics. They want to say they have alcohol use disorder, and they're making their recovery life fun and they're not drinking. And you could totally land there and say, this is perfect for me. Or you can hear a podcast with like big book thumpers, and that works for me too.
Hmm.
So, YouTube, Instagram, all this stuff that I can connect to in ways that I couldn't 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
The reason Bill W. wrote a book is because it was the media of the time.
Hmm.
If it was today, he'd have a TikTok channel, he'd have a
Yeah.
YouTube channel, he'd probably build himself a little studio and he'd sit there and interview people because that's where people aren't, that's what the media is today. It wouldn't be a book.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is so important for people to find things that resonate, and that kind of leads me to this idea of the sober curious movement.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I was talking to a therapist recently. She reached out to me and was asking me because she was just like, I want to familiarize myself with like this idea of sober curiosity and how do you distinguish if you're enabling a client or if, they're someone who really needs to be abstinent. And I'm like, well, you just have to be able to be very honest with your clients, and say, I think that this is past sober curiosity here. But creating this non-judgmental space for them to explore
Hmm.
regardless. And my perspective is just that, there being a spectrum of alcohol use, there should be a spectrum of recovery options available and, support available to meet people where they're at on that spectrum. And if people aren't at a point where they would go to AA because their drinking isn't quote unquote that bad, based on their perspective, or they think that they're not at a point of physical dependency, isn't it great for them to have spaces where they can explore before it gets there? And
Hmm.
that's kind of my thought on it all, is this idea of like preventative health and harm reduction and inviting people in earlier on. And I
Yes.
honestly find that people I work with predominantly, as they develop their awareness around their alcohol consumption, even if they come in a non-judgmental, open space where they can just genuinely be like, I messed up and drank again. And we can be like, okay, well, how did you feel about that? Like with guidance and awareness, allowing someone who's in the gray area to honestly reflect on their drinking, most of them decide they don't want to drink anymore anyways. Whereas I don't know, had they not had that space, if they would have kept drinking until it became an addiction. And so I'm curious about like initially, like what's your thoughts on it? And then in the recovery community, what is the thought of sober curiosity? Or people are like, what the hell is this shit?
I love the
Most
idea of
people
sober. Yeah, I love
like,
sober curiosity. I love
yeah.
the idea of it. I love that it opens up more people to recovery. If we go back to the big book, that was written in 1937, 1938, and it was written for the low bottom drunk. It was written for people who were gutter drunks. Later on, more people came in who were more gray level. And I look at you mentioned earlier the spectrum. I think dependency is on a spectrum. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm lesser of somebody who has a problem, or as I would call myself, an alcoholic, than the low bottom drunk. I like to call myself an alcoholic because it reminds me of what I am and it is empowering to me. And if
Mhm.
you don't like that phrase, that's okay. You don't have to call yourself that. You could be like, I'd like to stop drinking. That's as good as anything there. You're expressing that desire. And it is a spectrum. But just because you're on one side of the spectrum doesn't mean you're necessarily any healthier as somebody on the other side. Because the way alcohol use disorder works, eventually you move across the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
you're eventually going to, it may take you a long time, but you're going to eventually get to a point where your
You're,
health is going to suffer.
hmm
I look at my son as sober curious. He's never had alcohol before. He's been offered it and he's not interested. He's 17. He's a volleyball athlete and he goes to the gym like all the time. He is in impeccable shape. He knows the family history, but he also doesn't want to feel bad. He wants to be able to play athletics really well. He wants to get a good workout in, and he doesn't want that holding him back. And there are a lot of people now who feel that way. So you could even be sober curious just because I want to live a better lifestyle. It's
right.
not that I think I have a problem. When have
Yeah.
you heard about somebody going out and saying, I got pulled over and arrested and dragged into the back of a cop car because I didn't drink?
hmm
It never happens. So if you don't drink, you're not going to lose anything,
Yeah.
but there's risk if you do.
Yeah. I know. And I feel in my own, sobriety journey is this like reflection on how much we normalize, problematic
Mhm.
drinking and almost create a space where people would be in denial about bringing on alcoholism, alcohol use disorder. Like, at the very least, I think of a lot of people who drink in accordance to societal norms or standards are at least like psychologically dependent on alcohol. I mean, if
Mhm.
you think of how many people, if you talk to them, you're like, okay, but would you go to a concert without drinking? Would you go out to dinner without drinking? Would you go to a party without drinking, a holiday event? So many people would probably be like, oh, I like without alcohol, and even people doing dry months and stuff. I've seen threads where people talk about how they're taking a break, so they're like not going out and all that stuff. And I'm like, it's so interesting when you have this new lens on things and like I just do whatever I want to do without drinking, which yes, definitely is probably less like social outings, but I still do them and I wouldn't, it's just that I'm not forcing myself to go to anything I don't want to do, but I find it wild how much people do you realize how much people do rely on alcohol even, and it's kind of normalized to do
Yeah.
so.
I was just at the beach on Saturday and they're at like noon, 1 o'clock. And yeah, there's people walking around their little koozies. It's like well, we're at the beach. So we have to have a drink. It's like,
It's warm out.
it's what, like, I don't know. I'm fine. I mean, I'm chugging through Waterloo, but that's because I'm thirsty and I like the taste of Waterloo. But being drunk isn't going to help me at all. It's just going to make me a jerk and I'm going to get tired and I'm going to pass out and then I'm going to be crabby and irritable.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be free from, I don't have to think about it anymore.
hmm
It's just not an option that's on the menu.
Yeah. I know. I really wonder like what percentage of people who just kind of drink normally, like I wonder, what percentage of would be considered like psychologically dependent. Just meaning like would you go about your normal day-to-day social life if you weren't drinking? Would you feel like you're like would it be something you're missing if it wasn't there? I feel like a surprising amount of people would be shocked as to how much they do rely on it.
This is hard for me because I can't conceptualize normal drinking. And I have a feeling those people who bring like, or normal drinkers, but bring beer to the beach, they drink half a beer. They sip it for an exceptionally long period of time, don't finish it, put it away, and then are done.
Do
Uh,
they though? I feel like,
there are a
and
lot
when
who
I say
do.
normal, I don't mean healthy. Like, not that there's really any healthy. I feel like I mean what is normalized.
Oh,
What
okay.
is
I
normalized?
wasn't following you.
I feel like what is normalized is a lot more than
Yes.
like, I think most people would fall in like a little darker gray than they think.
Yeah, I think
And
what's normalized, it's what I'm drinking, but I still have my job and I still have my marriage and I have money and I'm not losing everything and I'm not getting I'm not getting too many DUIs, or maybe I'm
Mhm.
not getting a DUI. But that's what's considered normalized.
Yeah. But also is like anxiety from drinking is normalized. Hangovers from drinking are
Hmm.
normalized. Having a foggy memory from drinking is normalized.
So I'm my daughter is part of a soccer club in town,
Hmm.
and the parents on this soccer team are always talking about alcohol. We went up to Burlington, Vermont in June.
Do they listen to your
Or
podcast?
probably not, because I don't think they've decided to stop. I don't tell them about it. But we went up there and they had like the games start at like 9 or 10, and there's a cooler there with like magnums of champagne and orange juice and sometimes harder. And they're just somebody pulled out the Jello shots and they're like going to town early and all day. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God this is not me. Thank God I don't need this. Oh my God, I can't. And it's like every game, and I hear them oh, we were so hungover because I've gotten older and I can't process like I used to. I'm like, yeah, that's me. And I think that in that sense, that's normalized because that's what the parents on the soccer team do. So for them, it's normal. For
Mhm.
me, my eyes are going out of my head. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
It does feel like you're witnessing like an alternate reality
Hell
when
yeah.
because I was right in there. Like I would have been right in there doing that. And then once you step
Hmm.
out, and that's why I always tell people, I'm like, just give your thinking give the change a chance. Like give your thinking the opportunity to evolve because you don't know what you don't know. So you can't imagine like how you're gonna think and feel and conceptualize things on the other side. You just have to get there. Like, give yourself a chance to get there and just see how much your thinking evolves. You're going to be thinking completely differently. Like, what the hell was I doing? And it's just like, oh, it never ceases to amaze me, like, how much differently my perspective is on everything just from the length of time of committing to not drinking. Like my whole brain has rewired, my whole life is different. And it's just, I see how, like, how did I ever enjoy that behavior? Like, I was feeling like shit on a regular basis. I was so insecure and low self-confident, like
Hmm.
experiencing such low self-confidence because I just put myself in a position to be constantly judged by how drunk I would get. And then I would have anxiety about like people judging me. It's like, why are you putting yourself in this position to just be torn apart because you were an idiot? It's like this whole
You don't see another
cycle.
option.
Yeah, it's this, yeah. And so whenever people are like, I just like and even when I would do dry months and I would feel significantly better and I could see like myself taking shreds of my power back and feeling good and being like, oh, it's nice to like wake up and not have to feel like shame or wonder who I pissed off or who I have to apologize to or anything like that. And yet still would always return back to drinking and think that it was so unrealistic to expect myself to not drink long term. And it's just the things we tell ourselves is like a
Yes.
prison. It's a prison of our own making, our thoughts. And it's so cool to see how expansive your thinking can become once you overcome alcohol. Because once you do that and you realize, like, holy shit, like my reality is just reflective of whatever I tell myself is the truth. If I tell myself that the truth is that I'm awesome without alcohol, I can accomplish way more. I feel a lot better. I have less anxiety. I have better friends, more passion. That's what's happening. And like you realize you can extrapolate that to all your belief systems and really like be a little more critical about the thoughts that you
Hmm.
are telling yourself and a little bit more scrutinous of them because it's like I lived 30 years telling myself the only way to have fun was alcohol while I was like actively making myself miserable and I still
Right.
believed it.
Hmm.
So it's just like how powerful your thoughts are is so wild.
I had a friend who told me I was trying to get up early in the morning to get on my exercise bike. And I'm like, this is so hard to do. And he goes, well, you could quit drinking. that's harder than what you're trying to do here. And I'm like, you're right. And it does remind me that when I think something's not possible, I quit drinking. I haven't had a drink in 11 years.
Wow.
So why can't I get my VO2 max up? Why can't I push it a little harder on the Stairmaster? I'm working with a nutritionist now. She's like, you need to do ab curls 10 minutes a day, every day. It's like, well, why can't I just find 10 minutes on the floor where I just do some curls and be done with it in 10 minutes and just do it every day? Why can't I? Because drinking was a lot harder to quit. I should be able to do this. It opens up of what can I actually do? What is
Yeah.
possible? Because all of those things have to be easier, even if they feel hard. Even if they are hard, they're not as hard as stopping drinking because most people can't.
Mm-hmm. I know. And then the idea of, if you say you can't, you're right. It's just so true. It's like, well, if I tell myself it's so hard, it's so hard, it's so hard, like that's my inner dialogue. And even with drinking, I think our inner dialogue, I just got off a call with a client before we chatted, and she was just saying, and this is such a common theme I notice with women who overindulge. It is people pleasing, perfectionism,
Yep.
people pleasing, perfectionism. And what an exhausting brain to live inside. You're hard on yourself if you're not perfect and you're catering to everyone else's needs before your own. That makes a very, very like draining inner landscape to be living in. And
Mm-hmm.
so no wonder you're like drinking because you only have so much emotional bandwidth. And when you're using the majority of it every day, trying to be perfect, beating yourself up when you're not, and taking care of everyone else before yourself, then like of course your resolve runs dry and you're just like, I'm gonna just drink. And
I
so that,
started I started doing EMDR
yes,
therapy. I had my
nice.
second session last week. And I have learned that a lot of my people pleasing. So it's not just the ladies, a lot of my
Yeah.
people pleasing, a lot of the perfectionism was around I don't want the other people around me to be upset. I
Yeah.
am remembering this. That one of the things that we explored was I must have been 3 or 4, and my mom left, and I was with a sitter, and I was really upset. I can remember bawling, and the sitter coming over. It's okay. It's okay. And just thinking, no, it's not okay. But I have the memory of why am I behaving this way? Why am I losing my mind when I normally don't? And I do remember calming down. And with a little prompting, I realized I calmed down not because I was any better, but because I didn't want the sitter to be upset. So I
Mm,
can be really upset on the inside, but I'm going to calm you down because I'm worried about how you're going to feel and I don't want you upset. And
yeah.
that is a link for me. That's a people pleasing and the perfectionism of I made a mistake, I am a failure. And
Yeah.
that just sends the anxiety going up. Those are triggers to drink. So
Yeah.
those are things that I have felt. I'm sure the ladies feel this way, not just the ladies.
Everyone.
Yep.
I think a lot of people as a trauma response try to manage the emotional well-being of other people.
Yep.
And I also think that's a big contributor to social anxiety because when we're out, we're constantly like scanning. I did a post on TikTok recently that went like more viral than any post. It has like 100,000 likes
Yay.
on it. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. 100,000.
Except
Yay.
with that, like always comes like people coming at you, no matter what
Yes.
what the F you say, like
If
they're
they're
coming at
hating,
you.
you've done something right.
Yeah, exactly. So but what I posted was I was like it was like an overwhelmed sound bite. I don't even remember what it was, but I said, when you're a highly sensitive person, which like high sensitivity can overlap with like
Yep.
hypervigilance, which is a trauma response, which is you know, being on high alert constantly and taking notice of your surroundings and trying to kind of assess everyone's emotional well-being, trying to manage that. It's all a trauma response, but so many people related to, I said, like, when you see like this person, Sarah has anxiety and this person's pissed at that person and your shirt's itchy and the lights are bright, just being a highly sensitive person in a social gathering. And so many people are like, oh my God, this is what I always feel like. And uh a social setting. It's so overstimulating for me, it gives me so much anxiety. That's why I drink. And it wasn't even
Yeah.
about drinking. It was just about like high sensitivity and overwhelm socially. Um, and there must have been at least 100 people who responded like, this is why I drink. This is why I drink. And I think so many people have unresolved trauma or they're just more sensitive than
Yeah.
they realize or they're people pleasers. And it's just it's funny because the last client I was talking to, we were saying how it's such a novel concept when you realize like you can just go out socially and just be. You don't have to be like assessing everyone's else's state of being. You don't have to be entertaining people and always talking. Like you're just enough just to be there. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, like when we're out socially, like we need to be the entertainer or we're
Right.
just really overly attentive to everyone else's needs. It's like you can just go and just exist. And like, how nice is that to realize?
I give myself permission sometimes to be awkward and a bore,
Yeah,
and that's okay.
I love that.
It may not be awkward and boring to you, but it feels awkward and boring to me. And I'm going to be okay with that. And I don't need to drink over it. And I used to have to because I was uncomfortable with those feelings that this is not something that is comfortable in any way. And I don't want to sit with it and I need to make it go away. I
Hmm.
just look a lot of this stuff as I'm thinking about that story we read in the big book a couple weeks ago, and I just saw, and she was talking about that, the woman of being really socially awkward. And I don't know how to talk to people. And I talked a little bit about and sharing of there are a lot of like psychological things going on. Neurodiversity is like one of those things, depending on what you qualify as neurodiverse, it makes you
That was the
not fit
debate
in.
of the
What's
post.
that?
That was the debate of the post. Like,
Oh, tell me more.
high sensitivity is like autism or like neuro
No,
is or that like it's a sign of autism and it can't like exist separately, and that saying you're highly sensitive is actually kind of like ableism because you're denying that it's a label most people adopt instead of autism because it sounds more socially acceptable. It was a whole thing. I was like, I think that both can exist simultaneously.
yes.
You can have one, you can have both, you can have neither, you can have both plus more. Like people are just so addicted to like black and white and being right and like my diagnosis must be what it is for everyone. It's like, no, dude.
No.
Yeah, but
So I
sorry.
haven't talked about this at all, but about a couple weeks ago, I was diagnosed as having level one autism.
Hmm.
And I always thought I might have it
Yeah.
because of the other symptoms, but other people are like, what are you talking about? I know I have ADHD, so I
Hmm.
qualify for this. And this is the underlying reason of why I drank. It is the underlying reason of that uncomfortability. And I'm good at masking it.
Hmm.
But I don't think it's the case that everybody who is uncomfortable has autism.
Or
And
everyone who's highly sensitive or more
yeah,
sensitive than the
I'm
average person.
I'm pretty sensitive,
Hmm.
and I also have ADHD, and I also have I'm on the spectrum at the lower end of that, but that's part of it, but it's not all of it.
Yeah.
And you can't just blind yourself, well, I have this and it must mean that. No, some people are sensitive. Some
Hmm.
people are neurodiverse. I think my thought here is there are those underlying conditions, whether it's neurodiversity or sensitivity or anxiety or depression or trauma response of all these different things that could be going on. That's really what the root cause of your alcohol issues are. There's something going on under the surface that you can no longer tolerate and get through. You need alcohol to get you through it.
Yeah.
And as I'm reading about that woman of like, I didn't know what to say to people. I'm like, I'm not making a judgment that you now have autism. It's there's something going on where maybe you just even felt less than and you don't feel secure in yourself. And alcohol gave you that rush of courage that you normally don't have.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the thing is think what's under the surface. That's what you're solving for.
Yeah. And I think whatever label, like, or diagnosis helps you to understand your own underlying,
Yeah.
like, predisposition, disorder, like, whatever the case, like, just kind of personality, is helpful.
Hmm.
But it's like, I do feel like our society is so addicted to labels and just being like, that it's like, I think
There
the
only
idea
is
here, labels is like the last thing. It's like the understanding beneath it we're looking for. So if like you relate to a label that helps you understand yourself more, not saying that there's like not legitimacy to like every label and all the different categories and whatnot, but it's like isn't the main goal not arguing over labels, but like even with the alcoholic, it's like, does it matter if you say you're an alcoholic or not? If you're
no.
like, I'm addressing the dysfunction here and
Yes.
understanding myself. And it's about self-discovery and like healing, really. And what does it matter what label you adhere to that if you're kind of like truly addressing your healing that you need to and understanding yourself on a deeper level?
I talked to my therapist about this, about doesn't even make sense. And she's like, I do like the labels thing. And we're on the same page here. But I
Hmm.
like the labels thing because it gives us sort of a reason and we can go back with what do we need to address.
Yeah,
So just having a label of saying you're autistic doesn't do very much, but it does give me the idea of, okay, well, that's why I'm susceptible to being socially awkward.
right.
That's why I also have this insane talent for pop culture of I can tell you like number one songs from 1983 or what were first run syndication shows in 1982 with Waylon Flowers. That's why I'm crazy about some of this stuff and I'm not just a freak. It's my brain's a certain way that I have also these gifts.
Yeah.
And it's a way of explaining, okay, so that's why I am the way I am. So how do I work on it to be as functional in society as I can? Or when something is that like because I'm predisposed to being feeling less than or being afraid of people, of realizing, no, that's not real. The way your brain is wired is going to make you think that way first. So, what are the tools you need to get past that? To me,
Mhm.
that's where a label comes in.
Yeah.
I have ADHD as well. I struggle to stay on task and focused. So, knowing that, what are the things I need to do? Even if it
Right.
involves a medication, what are the tools I need to be focused, even if it's harder for me, so that I can navigate in this world and be successful? A label only means that it's identifying something so I can have a prescriptive plan.
Exactly. And what you're explaining is a deepened understanding of yourself and how to
Yes.
approach yourself in the most beneficial and like effective way with understanding and compassion.
Mhm.
And I think that's where like labels get lost is like a lot of people just like get the label and they're like fixated with that. And it's like, this is just an opportunity to understand yourself more, not like identify with it, and to like have it be this thing that is like you are like this now. And I think, yeah, and we go through waves and phases of like things being at the forefront, and it seems like
Mhm.
it gets diagnosed like so much more. And so it's just, I think your perspective is very balanced. And I resonate with that too. Like there's most things are useful in balanced ways. And when used as like a method to kind of have compassion and accountability and understanding for ourselves, not something that we're
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is me. Even with sensitivity, it's like I always talk about how Because sometimes I feel like we can use labels as like something to hide behind instead of empower ourselves. And even
Yes.
with high sensitivity, I feel like sometimes people can be like, well, I'm really sensitive, as if it's like now this entitlement, like people need to cater to you because you are highly sensitive. And I try to be like, no, like like if you're highly sensitive, it's an awareness of yourself and how you can navigate the world in a way that you feel empowered and comfortable by, not expecting the world to then like accommodate you. And I feel like that's where I really like labels, because it's like, how can we take ownership of this in a way where actually you can empower yourself to create a softer life in certain aspects? And also, like you said, with autism, it's like a really beautiful gift when you can identify how like it enhances your strengths, and then you can support yourself where the weaknesses are. And so, yeah,
I
continue.
look at sensitivity as being super sensitive because I'm one of these people as well.
Yeah.
It's not everybody has to change because of me. It's if I'm having a sensitive reaction to something, I want to learn some coping mechanisms, but I also want to be able to learn. One of the coping mechanisms I want to learn is how do I take a moment to think through, should I be having a reaction or not? Does this
Hmm.
person mean to hurt me or not? Do I need to, is it justified to be offended by something? And maybe I can think that through for a few minutes and like, okay, no, it's fine. This is just me. I'm having a reaction because maybe it reminds me of somebody who hurt me. And normal people don't have to think that way. But if you're sensitive, I've got to take a couple steps and take some breath and be thoughtful
Yeah.
and put it in a little bit of work to get through that. And I think we're
Right.
talking about gifts. People who are more sensitive, a lot of times they're more empathetic.
Hmm.
They care about other people in ways others don't, that you have a gift that way too. So if you're worried about
Yeah.
being too sensitive, well, what gift does it have? Are you that type of person who has can put yourself in somebody else's position and really identify without just sympathizing, but you can empathize, putting in their shoes and really help somebody? Like, what are
Yeah.
the gifts that are with that come along with it?
Hmm. I know. I think the recognition of like, oh, not everyone is as empathic as I am. I think that's kind of a rude awakening for empaths, because you sort of naively just exist thinking people, I don't know, maybe just me, but I feel like I existed in a way that I was like, oh yeah, like I'm considering this and like they'll consider that for me. Just assuming, because I'd never really consciously recognized like maybe I'm more sensitive than the average person, or maybe I'm more empathetic. Like I never thought of that. I just You just have this subconscious mindset of like, this is how I am, so everyone else is like this, even though you're not consciously thinking that. But you know what I mean? When you're not
Mm-hmm.
aware of what makes you different, then you're not aware that other people are different. And
I
so,
consider myself an empath, and it's hard when you see it yourself, especially if it comes to you easy, where you can see it when most people aren't, and it's tough for you to empathize with that. But
mm,
if you do have something, if you are an empath and it does bring you some joy to pull somebody out, but without just saying, oh, it's fine, or, other people have it worse. But if you actually put yourself in, listen, and you can pull yourself out and somebody feels better because they've heard, that is the payoff to me.
mm-hmm,
And that makes it feel good. But if you're able to really empathize without inserting yourself into the situation, you have a rare gift because most
yeah,
people can't do it.
can't separate their energy. I
No,
I definitely could not. I mean, now with coaching, it's like been such a it's
empathetic
so
people make great
helpful.
coaches.
Yeah,
You
it's so
have to be.
helpful, but it is like a thing about protecting your energy and recognizing, like, okay, like you
I
can help
struggle with
this
that.
person as much as they want to help themselves. And like, that's it, because I used to be in the beginning particularly attached to people's success, which is also like an
Yep.
ego thing, not just an empath thing, because you're like, oh, like I'm the solution and
Yep.
I'm failing. It's like, no, you're just a facilitator for their own healing. Like they get to decide if they want to do it or not. Like
Hmm.
you can help them create like an entirely different life if they want to take advantage of the bridge that you're providing, but not everyone is ready to do that. And like that was also an interesting transition to really like coaching has been a deep dive in helping me like create boundaries and capitalize on your sensitivity and empathy, but also like understand how to draw the line and know that, you can only be what you can be for people, but you can't be the solution.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's been like a really good exercise for me. But yeah.
It's hard, and it's hard for me, and I've had to learn to put that boundary up because other people's problems would drain every bit of energy out, and I feel as bad as their situation. Like I'm now living their situation, which I'm not, and I'm taking on all those feelings. And
Yeah.
that's a pisser.
Right. And that's why I love working with people around that idea of, it's particularly deep feelers because it's like when we haven't harnessed our deep experience of emotions as the strength that it is, it can really feel like a burden. And it honestly does keep a lot of people who have a lot of healing energy to contribute to the world stuck in a cycle of self-medication. And it's really cool to help people get out of that and be able to kind of start sharing their light and their gifts and recognizing like what you're drinking for, your perceived weakness is actually kind of your greatest asset. And definitely the energy the world needs more of, like more empathy and more patience and listening and observing and more sensitivity. And so
Mhm.
it's cool to get the haze of alcohol out of there so people can embrace that for the
Yeah,
gift it is. But
absolutely.
yeah, I love this conversation, how this evolved. I'm so appreciative that you shared your tidbit about your own autism. That's so funny that just evolved so organically with my post because I didn't know anything about that. Nor did
No, I just literally just got the news, and I've been struggling with it for going up and down of starting with I'm a freak. I'm a freak of nature.
yeah.
I have three arms to getting to an acceptance place. But I hear that and it's like, all right, settle down, Beavis. That's not everybody.
Yeah, no. First of all, I think like people are realizing, similarly to alcohol use, like autism exists on a spectrum, and
Yep.
there's not similarly to alcohol use, there's actually like a lot of beautiful things that can come along with some of the harder things. And I saw I was joking with my husband because he always like jokes about, he's like, I think I'm on the spectrum too, because I feel he's always saying how feels like socially awkward and just he's like I just don't like mesh good and socializing in groups of people and stuff. He's like, I think I am on the spectrum. And then I stumbled
Maybe.
across this post recently and it was this guy uh who was like looking through my girlfriend's phone to see if she's cheating on me, and all I can find is her searching signs my husband is on the spectrum.
Ha, ha.
And I sent it to John because he's always saying that. But it's like I think a lot of people can really relate to a lot of those feelings and wondering it makes sense when the vast majority of people who drink probably say they drink to be comfortable socially.
Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of scientific proof now and a lot of research with people. When I say neurodivergence, I'm using it as a big
Yeah.
catch-all. The people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
are neurodivergent
Autism,
have,
ADHD, like, yeah. Even
yes,
high sensitivity can kind of, it's like fall under there slightly.
those people are more susceptible to having problems with alcohol and drugs. It's
Hmm.
just the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really starting to be talked about a lot more, just the association between neurodivergency and alcohol. And if you just think about it from a very simplistic lens, it's like if you're deviating from the norm and you feel out of place, and then you have the social lubricant presented to you at every social gathering, and It's like it makes sense that you
And
would
that's what
immediately,
normal people are doing. They're drinking. So I want to be a normal person. So I'll drink too.
yeah. And meanwhile, I have all this like inner discomfort. So it totally makes sense. So thank you so much for sharing about that. And
Oh, you're welcome.
it's nice to hear it, get to know you a little more and understand, you know, we all have things people don't know about us that
Yeah.
we're dealing with behind the scenes. And so I appreciate your vulnerability sharing. And
I don't
so,
know how to do this without being vulnerable because I'm not going to be helpful if I don't
yeah,
put stuff out there. I'm not going to be successful helping somebody unless I can be vulnerable and get over myself.
I know. I know. It also helps us with our perfectionist mindset.
Well, there's that too.
We're not perfect. We ain't perfect, honey. So tell me what you would tell drinking Matt. I always like this
Mm.
question as a wrapping up question to see what would you tell drinking Matt if you could go back and just lend him like one piece of wisdom that might help along his path from where you sit today?
You think that drinking is the only thing that's going to make you interesting and have a social life. It really is the thing that's hampering those things that you want.
Mm,
The
yeah.
opposite of what you're looking for is happening because you are drinking.
Yeah. Drinking is like the least interesting thing that you can do. Not
Yeah.
drinking opens the door to you actually becoming the interesting person you want to become.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm so much more dynamic now than I was when I drank and sold myself so short. So I think that is such a beautiful reflection. And what about one piece of advice for anyone who's thinking about sobriety, no matter where they fall on the spectrum?
Just try it.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose to try and see how you feel? Give it a week. See how you feel and bake in all those emotions, even if they're negative ones. If you have a pinning of anxiety after you've stopped drinking, that's telling you something. If you feel much better, that's telling you something. So take it as a whole and then don't think about it as forever. Take it as I'm going to try this now and keep it open ended because forever is you'll psych yourself out. But I'm going to do this now. I'm going to try it and I'm going to see how I feel. That's enough to get you to the next day or the next week and just take it from there. Keep it small.
Hmm. I love that too. One day at a time, the cliches work for a reason. It really
Yeah, it
is.
shortens the goal.
Even now, I'm like, I have zero desire to drink, but if I put the lens of like, I'm not drinking till ever again in my life, like, even though I have no desire, something about that feels limiting, even though
Well,
I,
that's where I rebel as well.
yeah,
How
I'm
dare you tell me I'm not going to?
like, I actually don't want to drink whatsoever, and I've never been happier, but don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, don't put a parameter on me. I'll put my own parameters on.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh, and lastly, please share like all the amazing sober resources you have for people and where they can find you.
Well, I'd love it if you gave my podcast a listen. Sober Friends podcast. You can go to Sober Friends Pod anywhere on social media that I'm there. I've got to get back. I've been what's the word when you can't
Uh,
write?
Oh,
Um,
writer's block?
I've had writer's block on social media lately, and I think it's burnout.
Yeah.
So I've been taking a break, but soberfriendspod.substack.com, where I've been putting in more writing. Writing's hard. You read some of these people who write every day, and I'm like, how do you do that? Just even something small, writing's hard, especially if you take it seriously.
Yeah. I know one thing I find as a cure for writer's block is not writing, just living. Like release all, like I
Mm.
find so much inspiration from just not even trying to be inspired, just living my life. And I'm like, oh, like that's what it is. Like we're just so focused on being plugged in, or at least sometimes for me, like I'm just so focused on being plugged in. Like, what am I gonna do next? What am I gonna talk about next? And it's like you just need to like take a breather sometimes and just go live. And then
Oh,
it's like
that's so damn simple. I wish I
the
thought of that.
inspiration is just pours in from
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah.
that's what works for me. But thank you so much for being here for
Oh, you're
chatting
welcome. This was
with
my
me.
pleasure.
Go listen to Matt's pod. And why don't you leave him a review while you're there? And why don't you leave one here too? Go like, share, subscribe to both of our podcasts. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Can't wait to tune for you to tune in next time. Bye, everyone.